Hi there, Warriors, and welcome to this new live stream on the Uruguayan Heroes YouTube channel. The World Cup has started. 4.5 years after Uruguay went out against France, there's a new chance to be crowned world champions. And the tournament has started. Ecuador beat Qatar. Alessandro and Farid, thank you for once again being here. How are you feeling now? The World Cup has started. I mean, it's a bit weird still for me, but it's on the way. So some feelings probably have come loose for you as well. Let's hear how you're doing.
I guess I'll go first. I'm doing well. I'm excited. I mean, the opening match wasn't anything spectacular. I mean, if you're Ecuadorian, you're gonna love it. I mean, the sight of seeing the Qatari fans leave the stadium early.
Yeah.
Of course, after the first decision, there was a lot of controversy and debate. It seems like at the end of the day, it was a proper offside call. Of course, many aren't familiar with the rule of what happens when the goalkeeper is pulled. But overall, no, good opening match to start off. I mean, I wish it was definitely a much more exciting match, but Qatar losing, I think, is something that a lot of people are going to be happy to see.
Yeah. I don't make brackets. But in my gut bracket, I have Ecuador going at least to the quarterfinals. I think they have. I think they move very well. Ecuador has been a team that, if you look at it, just qualifiers after qualifiers, very steady, very strong. I think they have a great coach, and I can see them coming out of the group stage. I look forward to seeing when they play the Dutch, because the Dutch is in their group, right? Group A. Yes. So I look forward to that match. And if you look at who they have in the group next to them, they have, depending on who they play in that next group, I think they can really go toe-to-toe with anyone in the next group, even England. So let's see. Yeah. I think Ecuador has a great team, and I look forward to seeing how they further play in this tournament. Happy to be here. Thanks for hosting the space.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to have you here again. So I'm fully with you. I think Ecuador, during the qualifiers, certainly when Uruguay were not doing well, was threatening. And also, besides it being a competition for Uruguay, it was really nice to see because they played some good football. And today, I think two players I liked and I like overall are Incapi, the center back from Leverkusen, really good on the ball as well, and Moises Caicedo as well, such a good footballer. And certainly when they come up, for example, when they come up against big teams, they have so much pace to hit on the counter. And this was them being probably in control of the game, because Qatar really showed, well, basically nothing. But yeah, it's a really interesting team. Hopefully they will do well in this competition, and I believe they can as well.
We talked about it before. I remember we did one of those early podcasts, and I had mentioned this Ecuador team. You know, they went really far in the Under-20 World Cup. They came third. For them, that's historic for a nation like Ecuador. But Moises Caicedo in particular, I want to give a shout out in the middle of the park. He's instrumental to making things tick, especially when they're transitioning from attack to defense. His work rate is phenomenal. But this is the type of game that historically for Ecuador, they would have messed up under these circumstances. But I think under the new coach, Alfaro, he's really brought a defensive rigidity to the side. I mean, they've kept 7 clean sheets in a row. And for Ecuador, that's a rarity for a team that used to be very fragile in defense. Of course, in the qualifiers, right? For them, it's all about picking up points outside of Quito. And this time around, they were able to do that, and they did it well. And obviously, 2014, they qualified. Actually, they were one of the only teams to qualify to the World Cup without picking up a single win away from home. Yeah. And in 2018, we saw the collapse that happened. But now they're able to bridge over their under 20 stars, and they're reaping the rewards.
Yeah, because for this team you're talking about, who finished third in the Under-20 World Cup, I remember the game against Uruguay, when Uruguay had Araujo and Darwin and these kind of players, Ugarte as well, I think. And yeah, really Uruguay were well beaten, to be honest.
Yes,
it was really impressive.
It wasn't a contest.
And also the game on the Tabares away in Quito. Also, I mean, it's 4-2 because of 2 Suarez penalties in the last 10-15 minutes, but Uruguay were beaten so well. So yeah, I mean, that's a team besides Uruguay I'm looking forward to seeing play. Denmark is another one, for example. And tomorrow we have also some teams that will be interesting. I mean, England-Iran is the game. I think it's the first game of the day, if I'm not wrong. So I mean, it's coming at us now with in all its glory, basically. Uruguay game still a few days away, but if we turn our attention to Uruguay, which obviously is the most interesting thing for us, how are you feeling about Uruguay? I mean, I can ask this every day, and maybe it's a different answer because it's really the joy or the journey of following the World Cup is really up and down. But how are you feeling about Uruguay against South Korea going into this week? What is your how are you just feeling about it? And any doubts? Any just let me know. I'm not sure how you're feeling. For example, Farid.
Well, I think I'll go into something that I've been thinking about a lot. I've been thinking about in regards to this tournament, and yesterday it got confirmed a bit, which is we are entering a tournament in which is very different from the past in the sense of Darwin Núñez and so many other players were playing last week for their local clubs. So the usual turnaround time of a week or two off, a month in preparation on your home turf, then traveling over to the host country and continuing your preparation, it's not something that's happening in this tournament. And we see the case yesterday of Karim Benzema and the unfortunate injury. His thigh went out, and now he's out of the tournament. You know, you have the currently elected top footballer in the world based on performance of last year and his accomplishments not playing in this tournament, and the second best in votes as well with Mane. So it's completely it's very unfortunate that decisions were made. And we're aware of how those decisions were made from what we've seen so far. We now hear statements of regret on how the decisions of this World Cup were made. But yet, here's where we are now. We have a situation where maybe it's not the best team that wins it, but the team that has the enough stamina and not injuries to make it all the way there. So in regards to Uruguay, day by day, you just don't know. You don't know. You want to you hope for the best, and you're aware that teams are practicing hard. But again, going back to a comment that El Profe Ortega made last week when he arrived after his first session with the guys, is like the guys are sore, and we're trying to loosening them up the best that we can. So that is something that all 32 teams are playing. These guys are not in the best of tip-top shape to be able to go into a tournament like this. Hopefully, the injury bug won't start making a wave around the different teams.
No, that's a good point there, especially the one that you made about Benzema. It's a shame. It's a shame because it would have been such a great thing to see as a neutral, to see how Benzema would fare in this World Cup, considering he wasn't there in 2018, he wasn't there in 2010, he only played in 2014 and only scored a couple goals. Yes, it is a shame, and I agree, and I echo your thoughts on people saying that there's regrets now. Of course, they're being more regretful as soon as their pockets are loaded with all the cash that's coming in, but I think Uruguay have done a good job to sort of, weather the storm. We haven't scheduled any sort of international. I know a lot of teams play behind doors friendlies. We didn't do that. We didn't opt for that. There's enough unity. There's enough chemistry amongst this group of players that I don't think there was a need to do that, for example. But in terms of injuries, I heard Darwin Núñez had a little bit of a discomfort in training today. So hopefully that's nothing. I believe it's nothing. But yeah, no, we have to monitor the situation day by day. And something I know that we were messaging about the other day was, really, it's such a question mark, this tournament for Uruguay. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. There's this lack of sort of, I wouldn't say security, but definitive expectation that I usually have with this team. For me, I feel that if things click, they're going to click. And oh my God, this is going to be a hell of a tournament. But at the same time, I can very much see a situation where it doesn't click and, it's a nightmare situation of crashing out in the first round. But we'll have to see. And a question looking at the team in a more long-term scope is, what about the coach? If Uruguay do crash out at this tournament early, do we stick with Alonso or do we give Alonso time, or how does that project fare out?
Yes, that's a good question. I think I was talking with Farid a little bit about this a few days ago. I was speaking about Alonso and then saying that, well, as it goes right now, I wouldn't mind him being there for another 2 World Cup cycles because he really excites me. But Farid, I think you said as well, let's wait this tournament first. Let's wait and see how this goes. And that's absolutely true because I mean, that's how football is, you know, so dynamic and a lot of well, it all depends on the result of the day. And I echo your feeling that although I'm feeling confident about Uruguay, it's not an easy run we are going to have, even if we top the group or even if we don't top the group. We're all facing really tricky opponents. I mean, for example, if you win the group, which would be brilliant, you face probably Serbia, and Serbia is like probably a team like Uruguay in that they are just, you don't want to face them in these stages because they are tricky, they are physical, and it's not an easy team to play. And Uruguay, we also have to remember, although the results have been good under Alonso, have still yet to face top opposition under Alonso. And this at the World Cup, we're gonna find out how we will fare. And yeah, that's gonna be interesting to see for sure.
I do I do like the coaching staff, and that's not to say that I didn't like the prior coaching staff. I also respected and liked the prior coaching staff for what was done for just for the culture, for the team. But this coaching staff is really awesome. I was seeing how one of the trainers for the team was one of the trainers for the Brazilian squad 4 years ago, and then from the World Cup went to PSG. And so now here they are, you know, working with Diego Alonso with this team. So there is this, it feels like a very well-equipped coaching staff to me. And I don't know much about coaching staffs, but this looks pretty good in regards if you look at what's on paper. And I'm sure that they are doing the best that they can to prepare this team, because when you look at the pieces, you're excited. When you look at the athletes and you look at the performance of these athletes with their clubs, you get excited and you have hopes. You want to be able to go far. If this team clicks, then we'll see how far this team, not just click. I think now I'm thinking it's two things. If you can click and also stay healthy. This Nunez little thing in the knee, okay, felt a little discomfort. We'll see. But I think it's twofold in this World Cup. It's the click and stay healthy in a way that we haven't experienced in past World Cups before. And this injury bug thing can happen to any team at any time. So in regards to I wonder even if that would buy Alonso some time. Let's say if it does become an unfortunate first round exit. It's not what any fan wants to see, but let's see if that were to happen. Then I think you would have to open up a conversation of what happened, what were the tactical things that happened, how was it prepared, is there someone else or not? Or then do you go, well, then you give this a run of at least a Copa America to at least give it more time to build, bring in the pieces, have the guys gel together. And if you realize it needs to be a different kind of tactician, then you can possibly do that, or you bring a new tactician out. I don't know, but hopefully we don't have to see an exit in the first round.
Well, we're yet to see this iteration of Uruguay play against a European team, so it's going to be very interesting. Alonso has yet to fare. We have to see how he fares against European opposition, so that's going to be very interesting as well. Those are great points, like you said. Obviously, there's the obvious statistic that no manager has ever won the world. No foreign manager has ever won the World Cup. All World Cup winning managers have been from the nation who they're coaching. And in terms of Uruguay, I think it's obviously we've only had one Argentinian coach in our history, and we all know the disaster that was. But it's very important I'm a firm believer and very important that the person who's coaching that national team, if you're one of the predominantly historic or bigger teams like Uruguay is, then you have to have somebody who's from that country coaching the team. But I always also believe that it's always good to have some outside perspective, a perspective that isn't sort of shaded by sort of some of the cultural underpinnings or biases that may sort of influence one way or another, kind of, make things a little bit more difficult to process. So it's good that the team of statisticians, for example, there's Portuguese influence, there's European influence in there. That's very good to see. That's a breath of fresh air and something that we can really, use to build on in this tournament. But like I said, I think you're right. If something freak happens in this tournament, like an injury or a red card, then I think he buys himself another year. But then also we have to see what kind of we don't know the contract details of his backroom staff as well. So that has to play a role as well.
Oh, that's certainly true. I mean, going into the tournament and first game, as of right now, I mean, just recapping some of the latest news, which you are already aware of. Cavani back in full training, which is really good news. I mean, of course, he's not likely to start with Cavani or with Darwin and Suarez, looking likely to start up front. But it's brilliant to see him back. Araujo still training separately, which was to be expected, obviously. I mean, I think at first there was the theory that he could be probably make an appearance in the group stages, but basically along with the Barcelona medical staff, they were taking him for a potential knockout stages, which is obviously normal if you look at the injury yet and the time of recovery which is necessary for this. But yeah, I mean the Darwin one, I read this and I was thinking about should I tweet this, because it's obviously this kind of news which you bring, and then at the end of the tweet you make sure it's nothing much, but the first glance or the first impression is obviously people being freaked out, which was the case as well. But it looks like it's nothing really, but you never know. Maybe it can spring up again in a few weeks, and there he goes. But yeah, that's the thing about a World Cup. You have to be lucky. You have to be fortunate when it comes to these things, because I mean, for example, Mane or Benzema is obviously a big loss, but especially Sadio Mane going to the World Cup with Senegal. I think it's his first World Cup with Senegal as well. I mean, I was just feeling for Senegal and Mane, to be honest. But yeah, that's the cruel thing about sport. Yeah. One question to you guys, or I will ask some more, by the way. But looking at the tournament and not just zooming in on Uruguay, what is a team that you are following and with the impression of they are going to be something really serious, which maybe is not to be expected from the general opinion, So we talked about Ecuador. Is there another team out there? Would you believe maybe Alessandro, maybe Canada? Would you believe they are going to do it? They maybe can make a run like Costa Rica or in 2014? Anyone that springs to mind?
I don't think Canada will be one of those teams. Unfortunately, I'm being very realistic from a Canadian perspective. Obviously, the general fan hopes for the highest, but I think Canada's yet to even score an official goal in their FIFA World Cup history. In 1986, they crashed out without scoring a goal. I believe losing 2 and drawing 1. This time around, scoring a goal would be a massive achievement for the Canadians. But we'll have to see what happens. Of course, there's a big disparity in terms of quality. But a team that I think is going under the radar is Japan. I think Japan have been performing very well lately, and they have pieces in that team that could struggle. If I can draw everyone's attention or memory back to 2018, this close to beating Belgium, this close to knocking out Belgium. Tactical, they were a bit tactical naivety in terms of the way they played, instead of sort of defending with all 11 behind. They were 2-0 up and wanted to go for a third, and that's what led to Belgium mounting a comeback. But I think this time around, they've got players like Minamino, and I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right, but Aido on the wing as well. Tomiyasu, who plays on Arsenal. I think the goalkeeper is a weakness for Japan, but if Japan could spring an upset against a Germany team that doesn't really have an out-and-out number 9, is kind of struggling in transition. They had an underwhelming Euros. And Spain, who I think will top that group, but I think that second place in that group is up for grabs, actually, between Germany and Japan.
Okay, well, that's a really good shot. I mean, I agree with you that Japan is really an interesting side, I think. And every World Cup, I do have some believe in them, to be honest. It's not like you write them off completely from the start, but I think the group is really tough on them. That's just the thing. And you don't know how Germany are gonna come into this tournament. I mean, I do not know anyway, but it will be tough for them. And on Canada, I think it's also really tough on them to be in the group they are in. I mean, Belgium is not on top of their game, but still it's Belgium with many players who, like De Bruyne, who just can change the game. And I like Croatia. I mean, not just because of 4 years ago, but I think they have such a good team. So it's going to be tough. Farid, any team you want to highlight? Or
always keep an eye on the Dutch. I think there can always be something special there. I never undermine the Dutch. I think it's a team that plays with a lot of pride, that plays with a lot of heart. And help me remember, the Dutch didn't make the last World Cup.
They did not.
No.
So this is coming back to that world stage. There is a path there for them, with their group, and then also seeing who they have again next to them in Group B. So I think there is a path there for quarters if things continue to progress, and then you see what happens match after match. Ecuador, again, I brought them up as well, but then I also think about teams like Senegal coming. They are the champions of Africa. They're one of their star players, unfortunately, won't be able to play. And you can't also we'll see how Ghana does. This is, look, guys, push to shove. If Ghana was not in this group, you look at Ghana and say they play with a lot of heart. And if anything, this group, and based on who Ghana has to play and who they know they have to play in that last group stage match, give some extra motivation to that team. You can't deny that. They brought in Iñaki Williams. He decided to play for Ghana. That cannot be ignored. He's a tremendous footballer. His brother's playing for Spain and had the chance to possibly play for Ghana as well, and chose to play for Spain instead. So it'd be great to be able to see how far an African team can go, because we've never seen an African team reach the Final Four yet. So, we'll see. I have the Dutch, African nation. Well, there was this one match once upon a time, 12 years ago now, but very fresh in people's minds, and especially portrayed often on social media. And will be, guys, I just want you to know, just get ready that the Ghana match highlights from 2010 are just going to be increasing from now till the next 2 weeks. It's just going to be increasing a lot. So
that's the match that scares me the most.
Of course it does. That's the match that, again, as the other side's the team, you don't want to play. It's that one match that you want to hope that you don't have to need points going into that match, but you got to play the games. But again, back to the question, I like the Dutch. I'd like to see how far an African team can go. I haven't seen Denmark play much, but I've heard exciting things. And I don't know how far a CONCACAF team will go in this World Cup. The U.S. is a big question mark for me. It's been unfortunate to see Mexico's performance in the last year and change. And I don't know much about Canada. I just know that they led the CONCACAF in qualifying. But I have this one friend here in the U.S. yesterday. He called me saying USA third place match. I was like, all right, man. That's your bracket. That's what you want to say. That's fine. But and he was making his point for the players that they have. But I don't know how far the CONCACAF can go at this World Cup. Personally.
No, I think this batch of CONCACAF teams is particularly weak. Costa Rica in particular is very much a weaker version of what they used to be. Canada has grown the most. They have the highest ceiling of the CONCACAF teams in the moment. Jonathan David is a tremendous striker. Alphonso Davies, who we've already named. My friend Liam Miller, I'll give him a shout out as well. But no, Canada's obviously good. And they topped the CONCACAF qualification group, but I think they would have qualified regardless. I don't think they would have topped if the United States and Mexico had been such weaker versions of themselves. Mexico in particular, with Tata Martino at the helm, has just been, we saw when they played Uruguay, they offered next to nothing. And there's a lot of pressure that they wanted him out. There was a pressure to replace him and get a new coach in prior to the World Cup with 2 months to go before the tournament. So this is definitely a Mexico side that's coming into the tournament very much weakened. And the United States is a big question mark as well. Their results have not been convincing. They lost in the final and the Gold Cup, which they were expected to beat that Mexican side. I could have that wrong. I could have that the United States won that Gold Cup final. The United States did win that Gold Cup final. Yes, they did.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not big on Mexico either. Not just because we beat them, but overall, not even watch. Obviously, judge on games as well, but even if you just sense the feeling inside the Mexican football community, if you read it on Twitter, especially, and the World Cup has not even started, and there's been a really big call for the manager for a new manager to be appointed. Almada for being one, for example, the Uruguay manager. So yeah, Denmark, I mentioned them. Also Walter
mentioned
Mendoza, Denmark. Yeah, they made the semis in the Euros, if I'm not wrong. So yeah, they will be a tricky opponent, and they are in an accessible group: Tunisia, Australia, and France. So yeah, that's certainly one. Another one is like Jorge Cepero says here. What do you guys think of Serbia? Well, I just mentioned what I believe of them, but I think of them. I mean, you probably also got an impression of Serbia, and certainly some of their individuals. Well, I mean, Vlahovic and Mitrovic, I know they are not like I think both are struggling with injury or recovering from, but certainly Mitrovic this season for Fulham has been killing it. Unbelievable.
Milinkovic Savic,
also, yeah,
a hell of a player. And this is Serbia's moment, really. This is their golden generation coming to fruition. I mean, they were champions in the under-20 category a few years ago, and those players have gone on to do great things. And now look, this is it for them, really. But they have an accessible group in terms of that second place spot. They have to, contest against a very weak Cameroon side, and Switzerland, who's always a toss up. They're going to be hard to play against, but their output isn't going to be that much either going forward. So if they can scrape through Switzerland, I believe they'll beat Cameroon, then they'll come second, and then they'll play the winner of our group. But they're strong.
Yeah, they are. I believe so as well. So Walter, again, who do you guys have in the final? Well, I will start with this. I mean, I'm doing like a game with my friends. So I have Brazil and Uruguay in the final. And I've got Uruguay beating Brazil, obviously. So this is my final. I mean, I don't know if you have done something like this, but who do you believe will make it to the final? Farid, maybe you.
I don't make brackets. But here's the thing. Not to say that what you said is not something I've thought about, because I have. But I have this question for you. If it's a Uruguay-Brazil final, which can happen if they both end up first place in their groups, who's the semifinal match against?
I think it's England or France. If I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah,
it's not Argentina.
No, I think it's Argentina and Brazil.
That's right. It is Argentina and Brazil. Mm-hmm. That's right.
So yeah. My logic. I mean, obviously, I do believe it to a certain extent, but my logic behind it is as well. I can like do it really rationally and be kind of in the same bracket or in the same line of thought as all the others. I was just thinking, I'm gonna go Uruguay all the way, and if Uruguay win it, I'm glad anyway, and I also win some money with it. So that was. So
that's the tricky thing. I really don't like doing. They had the fantasy. My friends always try to rope me into fantasy Premier League. In particular, Walter tries to rope me into fantasy Premier League. But I can't do it because I can't watch the game knowing that I have something at stake or like I put a bet on it. That's why, especially with the World Cup, I've caved. I've done a few brackets with my friends and my cousins as well. I've shared my predictions as well. You just get bombarded and you have to approach it. The difficulty is always approaching it like so rationally, trying not to let your emotion take over. But I think in most of my brackets, the one that I tried to approach it rationally, I had Uruguay finishing second in the group, losing to Brazil in the round of 16. And in most of my finals, I have Argentina coming up against England and defeating them, and Argentina winning the World Cup.
Okay, because Jorge, dream final of Brazil Uruguay. I agree with this as well. It's also my dream final, but he thinks it will be Brazil versus England. And now you're saying as well, you think England make it to the final. Me personally, I do believe England's gonna flop this tournament. I mean, I'm not saying that's gonna happen, obviously, but I do have this feeling, and I hope it as well, to be honest. But yeah,
I can see it. Their results this year have been so poor. So poor under Southgate. There's pressure, and obviously there's pressure because of the culture and the media culture over there is a little bit toxic. But I don't know. I don't know with England. I think they have enough talent that they can squeeze by different games, and I think the reason why I had them in the final is because I think of the big teams, the one that I would want to lose a final would be England. So I don't know. But you're right to question it. They could flop.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so as well, to be honest. It's more hope probably than it is anything else. But okay, that's the way it is. Royal Pistolero with a comment there. Serbia, Croatia, Denmark, and then Brazil in the final. And like Jorge says as well, Uruguay's painful memories with Denmark. I think that was the 1990 or 1986 World Cup.
It was the blowout to Denmark.
6-1, I guess.
It was 6-1 in 80, 86.
86. Yeah. And then 2002, the 2-1. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, guys, if we really want to, yes, the excitement of someone's favorite team going all the way is always there. But if we look at it on paper, I think it's Brazil's to lose. If you want to go 1 through 26, and people can say, oh, the back line is a little weak. If the back line even has to do any work.
That is true.
Because mid on, it's just, and it's Brazil doesn't have the depth that Brazil has going into this World Cup is insane. And to know that there were the players that didn't get called up to go, even it's really it's awesome to see. And it's a very well focused, disciplined, and hungry team. It's like they know that to be able to prove what they've been doing for the last 5-6 years, especially under this coaching staff, it's all in for this tournament.
Brazil have lost 2 competitive matches. Yeah. The Copa America final against Argentina and the game against Belgium, which was a toss-up. It could have gone either way. It was a hell of a game in 2018. So this Brazil team is as strong as could ever be. The depth, you're right. There are deficiencies with the center backs. You have Casemiro screening those center backs. I mean, what at the end of the day, what work are they going to have to do? And obviously, those deficiencies that people bring up in terms of speed and age, those don't play as big as a factor in international football. And you could see that in terms of the Italians winning the Euros with Chiellini and Bonucci in the back.
Yeah. And then even going back to it, then okay, so the back line might be a little weak, but then you have your pick at who the keeper is for that team, and it's insane.
Yeah.
So it's to be practical. It's theirs to lose.
I had them losing to Argentina in the semifinals on penalty.
That could happen if they both make it that far. Because again, then you have the injury factor. But Brazil has the depth to be able to overcome the injury factor. For Uruguay, we don't want to see any injuries. We don't. But we know if all of a sudden a certain someone here and there gets touched up, then you have a question of depth. Then you have a question of, man, Maxi Gomez, can you really all of a sudden become a hell of a more can it change? Because Maxi hasn't been able to find the back of the net for a little while, a little consistency. But you have those questions come to mind. The midfield has some depth there, but then we already know the questions with the back line as well. So when will Ronaldo be ready? Will Ronaldo be able to play the first match? Where's this Barcelona physical therapist? There's no pictures of this human being.
They're hidden. They're in the bushes.
There's some. This Barcelona physical therapist is somewhere there, but so it's
part of the agreement. You can only be there if you wore an Uruguay jersey or an Uruguay training top.
Right. So I'm like, I don't see this physical therapist anywhere because I know the faces. You're so and so, you're so and so, you're so and so, but you don't want all of a sudden De Arrascaeta's groin issue to creep up on him.
No,
we don't want De La Cruz's old injuries to creep up on him. So we don't want Cavani's heel to give out. So Suarez looks in great shape. He does. He looks in fantastic shape. So there's that. There's the depth issues. What concerns me with Uruguay is let's just hope it's a healthy team that can play.
But it's depth relative to what the others have. The others have Brazil, Germany, England. They have tremendous depth. But in terms of looking at from a very narrow perspective of what Uruguay, comparing it to what the other squads have been, this is a team that has depth. But you're right. Once you get into the later stages of the tournament, you're coming up against, like a Brazil, for example, and they're going to have some of their bench players on the field who are going to be definitely much stronger than what we have on our bench. But that's just the reality of it.
Nice question here from Jorge. How do you guys think Uruguay's midfield will compete with Portugal's midfield? I mean, Alessandro, you got any thoughts on this? Because Portugal, they do have a strong squad anyway, but their midfield, especially Palhinha, I think has been brilliant for Fulham this season. They're strong.
That's a good show. Palhinha is a good show. A defensive liability in their midfield will be Bruno Fernandes, but that's dependent on what his role tactically becomes during that game.
Yeah.
As well, you have Ruben Neves, who's not having the best of seasons collectively with his Wolves team, but individually is still a very good standout in that midfield as well. It will nullify itself, and obviously the standout in that midfield is Bernardo Silva. I mean, I don't like the guy. He's a bit of a, some of his comments have not been very nice to Liverpool and his actions as well, but you can't deny the fact that he's a hell of a footballer. I mean, the way he plays, the technical grace that he has, he's a horse in terms of his work rate. He's all over the place. So that's going to be trying to nullify. That's going to be the challenge for our midfield. But we have Bentancur, we have Valverde, but then who becomes that third, right? Who else do we kind of throw? That's why I remember the last time we were on this stream, I said, oh, maybe Vecino does start that game because you need someone to just like move around and follow Bernardo Silva or make life very difficult for him. Whereas I don't think Ugarte, for example, he's more of a, tempo setter, recycler of possession. But if we're coming up against the Portuguese midfield, we're going to have to get ready to kind of, rough it and kind of get a little bit dirty with them.
Yeah, maybe that is part of the maybe someone like Mati Vecino's experience could, be able to have more of that physical play. Or do you have Ugarte, who plays in the Portuguese league, be someone who's there playing that match? Or maybe he's still a little too young. We don't know. Again, we're not seeing the practices. I'm sure that these are all questions that the coaching staff has been going over. I think the most important thing is what will the South Korea match show this coaching staff.
Yeah,
it just becomes that. It's what is practice showing the coaching staff right now, and then what does practice and the conversations and the preparation that's being had then translate to the actual South Korea match. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
On paper, this is the best Uruguayan midfield in I don't know how many years, really, on paper, in regards to talent, speed, where they play. I like this midfield a lot. And not only that, I was talking with my dad yesterday, what's going to happen on the right side. I mean, push to shove, you put Valverde to defend the first match. If you might not like it, but there's ways. Fede, I need you to go back. If all of a sudden you're noticing that the right side is a weakness, then Fede drops back and helps defend. And then you have to hope for the playmakers to push it forward and then know how to have Fede run forward when it's necessary, which I think I don't doubt he has the ability to do. But before we think about the Portugal match, I don't doubt Uruguay's midfield against Portugal's midfield, even though they have a great midfield, but so does Uruguay. I'm more interested. I want, as all of us, Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, depending where you are in the world, it's all eyes on how does this team move.
Yeah, no, really good point. Certainly the thing about focus on South Korea first. I mean, every time you listen to or read an interview from one of our players, I mean, today Rochette was talking again also first the South Korea game, which is obviously the way a team is going to communicate to the press, because that's also the message you want to send. But it's also the case because if you win against South Korea, you come into this game against Portugal obviously with more confidence. And talking about the South Korea game then, so 7 positions are fixed. I think we talked about it a little bit on the previous stream. But the 4 remaining positions, I think I'm right, 4, yes. So the 1 center back, which is between Coates and Godin. And increasingly, I'm getting the feeling that Godin will start. Then we have the 2 outside positions. If we're going with 4-4-2, the left midfield, right midfield, which is still up for grabs. Or they're not 3 positions, I mean, by the way. So these are still in discussion. We talked about, do we want to see De La Cruz or Larsketa? But at this moment in time, I know, Farid, you probably will not like this, so I will ask it to Alessandro. What if I'm not putting you on the spot a little bit now, but what would your 11 be against South Korea?
So I have read the reports and I share your thoughts that I think it's going to be Godin back there with Jimenez in the first game. My gut feeling, the way Godin, they keep hyping him up every time they ask about him, always in great shape, this and that. Yeah. I would put Coates, I put Oliveira, Coates, Jimenez, and then the right back, it's obviously a little bit difficult, but I would start Varela. He's already started right back in an opening match for Uruguay in the World Cup. Many would forget he started in that Egypt game. Yeah. He was solid. He was okay. It's going to be a big ask, but if you start Varela, he's going to have to be helped, and that means Valverde is going to have to maybe drop back a little bit deeper, or maybe you play Canobio, for example, on the right mid. I would play Canobio on the right mid. You free up Valverde. You have Bentancur, Valverde doing their own thing in the middle. Canobio will help Varela out defensively. He can also push the ball forward as well. He has those characteristics. And then, like we were talking about before, how, you know, it's always nice to only focus and narrow in on one game at a time. Yes, and that's the most ideal situation if you have everybody at 100% health and fully fit. But unfortunately, that's not the case with Uruguay. And I know that the Arrascaeta, we have to see, I'm not there in the training, his day-to-day with his injury. Do you just give him a 90 minutes against Korea? I would actually start De La Cruz and then have him come on in the sort of last half an hour, last 20 minutes as an impact player to change the game. We know he can do that very well, especially running against a tired Korean defense, for example. And then, you know, making sure that he would be sort of my locked-on starter against Portugal. But yeah, no, so to sort of answer the question, then the 4 remaining spots that I would fill, I fill Coates, Varela, Canobio, and De La Cruz.
Okay. Anything, maybe you're thinking a little bit differently, Farid? I don't know. Or do you agree with Alessandro?
I wouldn't be surprised if Pumita starts.
Okay.
Wow.
I know. I wouldn't be surprised if Pumita starts.
Will be some stage to make your debut.
It would. I mean, and that was Varela 4 years ago.
Yeah. Okay,
I'm right now. I got my pen in hand and paper it here, and I wouldn't be surprised if Pumita starts if he's in the best shape of everyone on that right side. If Varela, if you got the doctors there, if he's not there, if he's not 100%, you need to go in on that first. You need those 3 points in the first match, guys. You need those 3 points. You can't start off behind the 8 ball going against Portugal. You can't all of a sudden, but Uruguay, we did it against England, or, you know, we tied that France game in 2010. Like, you need those 3 points in the first match. You don't want to go into this Portugal team and, you know, again, behind the 8 ball.
Well, those who argue that's nonsense, because in 2014, if they got anything out of the Costa Rica game, for example, next thing you know, you're not playing Colombia on the round of 16, you're topping the group and you're playing Greece.
Yeah. Right. So it's like, so you need those 3 points, and you have to go in with a healthy, strong, solid team to play. So if Varela is not there and El Pumita is coming off with winning a title, and I know Varela won a Libertadores, and that's great, but Pumita was very much involved. He's played at the world stage before, also in a World Cup situation, even if it was under 20. If he's showing the maturity and he's playing lockdown defense in practice, then I wouldn't be surprised if El Pumita starts against Korea.
Wow. You're gonna go from marking in the Uruguay League to marking Heung-min Son. That's a big ask.
You got to see. But here's the thing: you're marking Darwin Nunez in practice, who's currently clocked as the fastest player in the Premiership this season. So if you're keeping up with Darwin in practice, who's keeping up with Darwin right now in practice is a question I have on the right side. Mm-hmm. That's what I would be testing. Is it can Varela keep up? Because I know Ronald is not playing.
No.
So I think that's the litmus test right there. Who can keep up? Who can keep up with Valverde? If you can keep up with Valverde and Darwin right now on the flank, going down, you're starting. If you can't, then Canobio is there to help you and back you up.
I guess that rules out Cáceres at the right back.
Yeah, because
I'm sorry, but yeah, I think it does, doesn't it? I think it does. I love the guy, but I wonder where his speed is at.
No, but imagine Cáceres and Godin having be on this right side of defense. I mean, that would up my nervous.
I'm not waking up at 4 a.m.
Right, yeah.
Let me know. I'll keep my eye open. What's the score at halftime? Okay.
For me, it's by the way, I think it's 2 p.m. I'm not trying to rub it in or anything.
I'm happy for you.
I'm 8 a.m. I'm not too bad.
Okay.
I mean, it's a 5 a.m. start, but you got to get up, you got to get ready. I might go to a friend's house, so I got to drive somewhere maybe, or they're gonna come here. So we'll
breakfast, boil the water.
Yeah. Prepare the mate. I got to go buy some yerba at a little local Argentine grocery store. So, yeah. And then in the mid, again, let's see how that Pualgia is doing for Cocho. I know he wants it. I mean, if there's anyone who wants to be there, wear that 10 and show that he's at the world stage level, it's Cocho.
And I would love it as well to see it, because last time out in Russia, I think he had some good cameo appearances for sure. He did. and also I think it was against Peru in 2019 when Uruguay were knocked out. I think he had he created so many chances, you know. I mean, if it wasn't for VAR, he's probably had 2 or 3 assists, something like this. But this big moment in a tournament, it still has to come because there's still many people who doubt him and who think
because the tactics haven't been there for him to shine.
That's a good point.
The tactics haven't been there for him to shine. Yeah. He was playing on a team that was un equipo de respuesta, no un equipo de propuesta. He was asked to drop back and defend and then move it forward.
In a 4-4-2.
And it wasn't this go, no. move it, right? So it's the tactical strategy. The strategy is there for him to shine. Now, if it's him or Nico, we'll see. It could be both in a match. The other question becomes is, does Facu Pelistri start?
Yeah, that's a good one. I was thinking about it as well today. I mean, that's the right flank. Alessandro went with Canobio, and the reasoning behind it, I can fully understand this. But Pelistri, I mean, there's also, when you read or in the press, there's not been a lot of discussion to who's going to play on the right at the moment. There's more talk about Coutinho, Coates, or maybe even the midfield. For example, if Ugarte or Chino play behind. But the right flank, it's really something that still has to be addressed in the upcoming days. It's going to be interesting. Yeah. Okay.
This World Cup, is it 3 or 4? How many subs do we get?
5.
5, yeah.
So that opens things up as well too.
Yeah,
that's really exciting. So Coates gives you height, right? Godin gives you some hops. Can he jump right now with the knee? Maybe he can. They say he's healthy.
Yeah.
But with 5 changes, you can start with and then this whole thing. Guys, go to Palito Pereira's Instagram. And he put this video up today in the stories. I haven't clicked to see the whole video yet, but it's this whole video about different Uruguayan players and the insane things the awesome things that Uruguayan players in the middle of a match have overcome or in their lives, right? But one thing is like the captain. The captain is there. The captain doesn't go. Mm-hmm. So that is within the culture and within the framework of how football in Uruguay operates. So you're not going to sit your captain in the first match, and we need to accept that. Godin has been practicing and training hard to get ready for that first match, and he's hungry for it. So so I wouldn't be surprised if he starts. But another thing is, let's just hope that these guys are healthy. Let's not have Josema pull something in the first match. Let's not all of a sudden need to rely on Coates or Matias Viñas or Cáceres need to come in and play the center. You know, let's not hope and say, okay, when can Ronald play? Let's just hope these guys are healthy and see how far they can go.
I understand the importance of the captaincy to a culture such as the one that Uruguayan football is, but part of me realizes that, you know, you got to look at there's precedent for doing something like this in Lugano in 2014. Right. And that really, really set us back. And then all of a sudden the captaincy goes to Godin, and then because Godin was no one ever thought, oh, Godin's going to be the captain of Uruguay, you know, through and through. He was given the armband against England because Lugano was out. And then from there, he did a hell of a job. And then we just kind of was like, oh, wait, we just realized, oh, this is like, you know, this makes sense the way he's playing at Atletico Madrid. Like, it makes sense. Why didn't we consider him captain? Everyone was so caught up with Lugano and respecting what he's done and given to the team. But I don't know. That's what makes me nervous, is that I don't want to repeat it 2014.
No, I agree. And the thing is as well, I think somebody else pointed this out last stream, that contrary to the situation back then, now you got players who are on a really good level on the European stage who could come in, like Coates. So that's the thing. But yeah, we will see. And either way, which is, I think we all have this sentiment, whatever decision Alonso makes, we're going to be behind it. We're going to see. Absolutely. But yeah, it does. It does. It creates some debate. Jorge, I've put this comment on for a couple of minutes, and I just want to talk about it a little bit because I found this stat, I think, a couple of months ago as well. And Jorge, yeah, you make a good point. Uruguay haven't won a game at the World Cup without Tabars as manager since the quarterfinal victory over the Soviet Union in 1970. I mean, the fact Soviet Union is the opponent speaks a lot of how long it's been. So, yeah, I mean, I do believe against South Korea this is gonna change. Absolutely, I think you also do believe this, but it's quite a statistic, to be honest.
I think, Jorge, that is quite a stat, and I did this exercise last night that gave me greater perspective of what Tavares and his coaching staff did during that run.
Yeah.
I went back and I looked at the lineups of, I think, of every match that Uruguay played up to when Tavares was hired, and then the first year of his matches. What Tavares came in, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing, because I remember watching these matches, reading about these matches, but I was younger, thought about the sport differently. There was not a consistency. No había referentes. Now, someone can reply to me and say, sí hubo, Paolo. Okay. But I went and I looked at the data yesterday, and Montero didn't come into play in the qualifiers in 2006 till, I think, in the second half of the qualifiers. Paulo Garcia didn't come into the second half of the qualifiers. There was such a turnaround match after match of who's playing, who's coming, who's starting, that there was, at least during that period, like I think Carini didn't start till the last quarter of the qualifiers. Magallanes was never called up. Pandiani was called up for 2 matches. There was such a difference between Carrasco to Fossati and how that change happened. When you see Tavares come in the first couple of years, it's about finding those pieces that had to be like there, solid. And and then I wonder if in the 80s, what were things like as well, and then going into 90, people can say the names. They can say, El Mago O'Neill, and they can talk about Francescoli, and you can talk about Poyet, and you can Fonseca, you can say the names, and that's great. Bengochea, and that's great. But when you look at it, the sense of consistency, to have certain players established, to build up a structure and a system, it took time. And it's very respectable and grateful as fans for what that last coaching staff was able to come in and establish. So to not having won a match with anyone else but Tavares since 1970, yeah, but it was also a different style of football. It was a different system of football. We joke about, the account que hueve la celeste de antes, and I love reading the stuff that they post, and I feel that part of me resonating. But it's also helpful, again, to be practical and look at the information of how the team was being built during those years. This is very different, and hopefully we will see a manager guide this team to victory on Thursday for the first time since 1970 without it being Oscar Washington Tavares.
Yeah. Well, you put it brilliantly. I hope we can see this, to be honest. I don't hope you. I mean,
sorry for the long comment.
No.
Sure.
Cafecito Group Gaming says here, no doubts, 4-2-3-1. Roget, Oliveira, Coates, Jose Mafarera, Vecino, Bentancur, Darwin, Darsketa, Valverde, and Suarez. I mean, that's a pretty good team, and I could see this happening. Yeah, I mean, we will see. I mean, we also have to see what kind of what is the way that Alonso would like to play. I know he stresses that he doesn't think in formations, so there's going to be a multitude of formations you could see in one game. But yeah, it will be interesting to see for sure. Jorge Zabero, you're coming out with the stats left, right, and center, man. Here, a fun stat as well is when Suarez and Cavani played together in World Cup, they have only lost the 3rd place match to Germany in 2010. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good statistic for sure. I think the ones we lost, obviously France, Cavani was injured, and against the Netherlands, Suarez was suspended. So
well, they didn't have the opportunity to link up in many of these big matches because of either an injury or suspension. 2010, Suarez was suspended, so it was Forlan and Cavani up front. In 2014, Suarez was injured again, so they didn't line up against Costa Rica. Although I think if Suarez had played that game, it would have been much different, anyways. And in 2018, of course, it was Cavani with his injury. So,
wow, I had never thought of that. They've only lost one match starting together.
It's crazy.
Wow.
But now we mentioned Suarez Cavani. So the question now from Ben Joss talking about Cavani, how important a role do you think Cavani can play? I think it's a good question because Cavani's got this situation now where he is basically seen as the option from the bench, certainly in the first game. But what a luxury to have him on the bench, right? I think we mentioned this quite shortly last stream as well. But
we did.
The role for Cavani, it's really interesting because it's really something he's not used to. I mean, for United, he's got a little bit used to it in certain occasions. But Yeah, I'm not sure how to answer this, to be honest, because I'm also not sure what. I mean, it could be the case that Cavani starts, for example, the second game. No, okay, maybe not. But I mean,
I don't know.
he's not going to be on the bench for the whole tournament. I don't believe that, to be honest. I mean, I think he's going to
I
start
do,
games.
but his fitness and it's just how fragile he is. Do you want to start him and then risk having him get injured and that's it, no more Cavani for the rest of the tournament? I'd rather have him. Unfortunately, this is what the circumstances are allowing, but I'd rather have him be that person who we can throw on the last 20 minutes, 25 minutes. That impact. Suarez is tired. You need something different. Throw in Cavani. That's what it's going to be, unfortunately, because of his fitness. And what a hell of an option, too. I mean, not many teams in the world in the World Cup are going to have that type of option to bring a striker with his pedigree on. But we'll have to see. I mean, and if there's one player in this squad who will understand and accept his role and put country over himself first, it's Cavani.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a example that springs to my mind now, to be honest, is I remember United were playing in the Champions League against Villarreal, I think it was, and he came on for the last 30 minutes, and he had this amazing run when the ball seemed out of play or Villarreal seemed to secure it, and he went after it, recaptured possession, and got it back into play, and United would score in the following moment. So I mean, what he brings and what the player he is coming from the bench, that is just such a luxury to have. So yeah. Another comment from Cafecito. Drew Gaming, 5 subs is great for us to rotate in energy. Guys like Cavani, De La Cruz, Tarera, Ugarte, and Canovia Torres, depending on the games. Yeah, I mean, these are all good options. I mean, yeah, 5 subs is great. Yeah, I mean, I don't think Alonso is the type that's going to overuse it, to be honest. He's going to be really careful with his substitutions, but we will see. We will see.
We've already started to see a pattern of similar substitutions at similar times with Alonso in certain games. In particular, in games in which we're leading, as soon as it becomes 75, 80-minute range around there, we shift to a back 5. You see a veteran like Godin or Cáceres come on, and you shift into a back 5 with 3 center backs. Alonso has had a preference, rightly so, and I agree with this, to utilize Cáceres in the back 3 more so than putting him out wide in the fullback role. But yeah, we're starting to see similar patterns. So the patterns have led me to believe that you're right. He's going to be a little bit more reserved with the 5 subs and use them well.
Okay, no, absolutely. Another thing I wrote down, which maybe might be nice to talk about, is some individual performances in this tournament. So, who do you got down as top scorer? Just a random question. Who do you think is going to top the list? Maybe a really surprise option, but I mean, when I ask this question, what is the first name that springs to your mind
for the entire tournament?
Yeah.
Oh, so any player, any team.
Yeah.
Oh, Lautaro Martinez.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that Argentina have an easy group, and my goodness, he's going to be on the end of deliveries and assists from Lionel Messi against very weak opponents. It's going to be, I think it'll be a situation sort of like maybe what Harry Kane had in 2018, where he was able to get the Golden Boot award, where he had the hat trick against Panama. I can see a repeat of that happening, and I think Lautaro Martinez is the right answer. Obviously, the obvious answer is Messi, but Messi's going to be more the playmaker than the finisher in this tournament.
Yeah, I think Lautaro for sure. He knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. Looking again at the group stages, let's see how Mbappe does. This is also his World Cup in a sense. This can be potentially his World Cup. There's a lot riding for him, especially now with Karim out. So we'll see how that opens things up more for Mbappe. Let's see how the Brazilian guys do. Let's see how Ney does. Again, group stage is a big thing. Yeah. And I really like the point that you bring up, Alessandro, that you look at Argentina's group stage, it could really open up the opportunity for Lautaro to build up that tally high to start off. Similarly, when you look at France, with the exception of the Denmark match, you can totally see some goals going in potentially against any of the other teams that they're facing. I don't see Uruguay blowing anyone out in their first stage. And if they do, oh my gosh, God help me. My excitement is going to be beyond where it already is.
Yeah, me too.
I'm keeping it together right now, but if all of a sudden this offense clicks on Thursday and they move the ball in this insane way, and then they go into Monday and the same thing, I don't know how to contain myself from there.
No, I don't know. Day to day, man. It's just like I'm trying to do work, and it's like it just an invasive thought, or like just pops into my head, boom, and I start thinking about it, and I get up and I pace around the room. I say, oh, what about this or that?
Yeah.
Oh man,
I want to just say I have to leave in a bit, unfortunately, but this has been great, and thank you again for the invitation to being on. I'm excited to see how the ball moves when Valverde just launches it from behind box. I want to see how that ball moves, because if all of a sudden Valverde becomes connected, if anyone on that team becomes connected to the ball the way that Forlan was with the Giovanni in 2010, then that's going to be really exciting to see. So
I agree.
It's a different feeling. I can tell you guys something from, having seen 2002, having seen there wasn't the team wasn't there in 98 or 94, wasn't there in 2006, 2002 didn't go, as you would have hoped as a fan. To be able to see a team that's been to 4 straight tournaments now, and it's just been expectations and hype and excitement. It's really great. So you would always sometimes wonder, there's no way I can be more excited than the last one. But this one there's so much excitement. Guys, I went yesterday and bought myself the jersey. And I never do that. For me, investing, the one I have is the 2010 one that I got off of eBay, and that's not an authentic one. But yesterday I called around. I went to this one store. They didn't have the size. And then I went to another store somewhere else to go find it, and I found it. And, it's just, I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to it. I was sharing with Alessandro earlier this week that I had a nightmare that we had lost both first matches. So we were going, I was like, oh, great.
No, but I made it feel better. I said I had a dream where we did well. So,
but it was great for me to have that nightmare, because I was like, okay, that can happen. And life will go on. It would suck, but life will go on, of course. But again, guys, thank you so much. I hope we can talk again before things start up on Thursday.
Yeah.
Really thank you so much for the audience, for the support of watching, for watching later after the stream ends, and to supporting this community. It's a wonderful community and a very supportive community to be a part of. And also just to continue to see how things just continue to grow with this community and the conversations in the space. I met with someone for lunch the day after our last stream.
Okay, I remember.
I met with Sebas. We met up for lunch. He lives in LA. I noticed another Uruguayan who lives in California connected with me on Twitter as well. So it's been great to just connect with people and talk. And
that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Yeah, that's really great. No, thank you. I mean, you're off probably in a bit then. So no, thanks for once again joining us. I mean, we will be before the South Korea game, we will have another live stream. I'm thinking of what I'm gonna do around the South Korea game. I would like to go live, but just have to figure out with who and when and whatever. But we certainly will be keeping this up. I also I'm gonna upgrade my StreamYard. I'm gonna take I don't know what to say, subscription or something like this, so that I can have some. Well, for example, the black background now is gonna be something different. So these little things I think will be nice for you guys out there watching it as well. So yeah, that's gonna happen. Okay, we're gonna go on for or anyway, Farid, you're free to go whenever you need to go. By the way, but Alessandro and myself are going to go on for maybe 10-15 more minutes, and we can wrap it up as well. But let's go through these comments. Gabriela Balki, where are you from? Why in English when Uruguayans we speak Spanish? Well, first off, I'm not Uruguayan. I do understand some Spanish. I don't speak Spanish really well. I'm from the Netherlands. English is it's better suited for me to do the Twitter account. Alessandro he's Uruguayan / Canadian, right? So he could easily go on in Spanish right now, but I would not be able to participate very well in the conversation because my Spanish is really basic. I can read all right, but speaking is something I have to learn.
Well, it all stems from La Celeste blog and what La Celeste blog was about, and the principle and the idea of having an English-speaking community, both with those who know Spanish to help those, who there's quite a community out there of people who are not from Uruguay who really follow this team and love this team because of its ethics, because of its morals, because of its principles, because of the culture. It's honestly so wonderful. There are people who I've become friends with at university, throughout high school, throughout, my experiences with football and different football teams, who really have, through myself and through what I've told them, the stories of the culture and the history and the Maracana. So, for example, they're like, they become sort of like, wow, like how can a country of 3.5 million people just do that or achieve this or that? And so I feel like that sort of history and that sort of culture drives or kind of attracts people in. And having sort of an English-speaking space, of course, what Less Listed Blog was based off as well, because a lot of people from Uruguay have moved on to countries like Canada, like Australia, the two that are coming to mind right now, like, for example, my father. So having that, who've had, children, next generation, such as myself, right, who can have that sort of space to sort of communicate and sort of share their love in both languages is I think something that benefits everybody.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Last Lesson Blog was a brilliant space to be on for everyone. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And also English, it's obviously the language. I mean, Spanish is also a world language. Don't get me wrong, but it's easier this way. And there are plenty of spaces. For example, I mean, you can Nahuel Bo, who's now in Qatar, the young guy,
lucky guy.
He's making brilliant content daily. So I mean, there are plenty out there, obviously, who do it in Spanish, but also one in English and more, by the way, which also I think is a good thing. Edgar Giribaldo, Cavani absolutely is all about team, country over personal. Yeah, I think we all know this with Cavani, and that goes for most Uruguayan players, by the way, certainly in this national team, which is also a great thing to see. Felix Season says Roget, Varela, Jimenez, Coates, Oliveira, Bentancur, Valverde, Tarasqueta, Pelistri, Nunez, Suarez. Yeah, that's a good team, and probably the one I would go for as well in the opening game. So let's go into a few comments and then we'll wrap it up. So these are the answers to the top scorer. Who are going to be top scorer? Royal Pistolero are going with Darwin. Will be brilliant, absolutely. Deadshot says Kane. And a question from Royal Pistolero. Alessandro, where are you at in Canada?
Currently, right now, I'm at Queen's University, where I study, where I go to university in Kingston, Ontario. But originally, I'm from the GTA, is what we would call it, the Greater Toronto area. So if you're from there as well, I'm usually back home during the summers, and I'd like to visit home frequently. Send me a sort of direct message on Instagram, and maybe we'll have a little repeat of what happened to Farid. Who knows?
Okay. And also, I'd be in. I think you're talking about the stream. Yeah, sure. We'll make that happen for sure this World Cup. Absolutely. Cafecito Group Gaming with some advice from me on the streaming. I will contact you. Thank you for the advice, by the way. Jamila Suarez, do you want Netherlands to win? No, I don't want. I don't want Netherlands to win. No, I'm supporting Uruguay. I mean, it's nice to see the Netherlands do well because the atmosphere in the country improves then. But for me, I'm not really bothered about it. Yeah. So yeah. Another comment: if Uruguay finishes first, they're placed in a favorable part to the semis, if I recall correctly, assuming Brazil finishes first as well. Yeah, I mean, that's true, and that's what we hope as well.
But it's never favorable. It's never easy when it's us.
That's true.
I mean, look, you tell someone, okay, you're going to play Korea, Ghana, and then you're going to go those Korea, Ghana games. The amount of expenditure in terms of energy and pain and suffering that we had to go through those two games to get to the semifinal versus Netherlands cannot be understated, right? So I think any game, any game in the World Cup is a hard game. Regardless, you're going to have to leave it out there, all out there on the field. And that's why I'm also a bit of a side note, a big proponent of the 32 as opposed to the 42 or 46 team tournament. I want to preserve having every game sort of be very meaningful and impactful and significant. But yeah, no, I don't think there's any easy path regardless. And in terms of running into the bigger weights as well, you will anyways. I think Belgium or Spain or Croatia is a possible quarterfinal match. And we all know how tough those games speak for themselves.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, especially the first game after the group stage, that is the thing we're talking about probably, because Brazil or Serbia and Switzerland is obviously a big difference. But overall, both brackets are extremely competitive, because last time around, I think England got into the one side of the bracket, which basically was not competitive at all, or overdoing it a bit maybe here, but it was really a big difference. And now the brackets are quite good, are divided quite well in the quality that they have. I mean, presuming teams are going to go through, which we think are going to go through, because you never know how it's going to turn out. But yeah, for example, especially the first game, that's the thing probably we're talking about, because Brazil, yeah, I mean, come on, that's going to be hard work, you know.
Well, the only focus is Korea, and thank God we got rid of that stupid statistic where Uruguay always are slow starters, and 0-0, 3-1 loss, 2002, right, 1990. So thank God that's sort of that monkey's off our backs and getting that 1-0 win against Egypt, because it would be even more pressure, especially with the new coach and all the other circumstances as well.
No, that's true. Yeah. No, and hopefully we can keep that on. We keep that up this tournament to get off to a good start. Jorge, will you go live after the match on Thursday? Yeah, I do think I'm gonna go live before the match for sure. And after the match, I do think as well. But if Alessandro is gonna be there or someone else, or how and when and that type of stuff, I still have to determine. And I will obviously post this on Twitter. So yeah, but. Yeah,
I'll be there if we win.
Yeah, that's the thing.
No, we'll see.
No, but I will communicate this for sure. So yeah, that's good. And before the game, we will go live for one more time.
Yes, I'll wake up extra early. Trust me.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'll be awake anyways because I wouldn't be getting much sleep. So.
Okay, no, that's true. Okay, last comment we're gonna take, because it's 1 hour and 10 minutes. I think we addressed most of the things we wanted to address, and had a nice time connected to you guys out there. So thanks for being here. And also, if you haven't already, please like the video. Would help us out a lot. Thank you. So Edgar says, from the likes of Argentina, Brazil, France, and Belgium, I'll take Belgium and England as well. I agree with this. I don't know, Alessandro, are you different?
I think this is my gut feeling. This World Cup is a South American World Cup. Argentina and Brazil are going to shine. Belgium, I mean, they weren't convincing me prior to the tournament, and that was sort of confirmed when they lost to a very poor Egypt team recently in their recent friendlies. France, remember the Champions curse, and this French team is decimated with injuries as well. I think their run is going to be limited to the round of 16 quarterfinals at most. I think they have enough talent to maybe bypass that Champions curse like Brazil did in 2006. But no, Belgium and France are not particularly teams that are, I can look at and say, yes, for sure they'll be in the final or semifinals.
No, the curse, that's the thing, because I think it's since 2006. So Italy won it, went out in 2010 in the group stages. 2010, Spain went out in the group stages 4 years later when they won it in 2010, and then Germany obviously in 2018 when they won it in 2014. So I don't see this happening, to be honest. But yeah, you never know. This tournament is gonna provide some upsets. Hopefully Uruguay will not be one in the negative sense, but we're gonna find out. So yeah. So once again, thanks for you being here, supporting the channel. Like you have done brilliantly today, and also a few days ago, and also for a long time on Twitter and on here. Hopefully we can all enjoy it, this World Cup. Well, not all of it, obviously, because we're gonna have some nerves. But yeah, let's hope we can have this experience and see something magical happen in what's gonna be a different World Cup, obviously. But yeah, Alessandro, thank you. You can follow Alessandro on Twitter. The Twitter handles for everyone is below in the description, so you can do that. And yeah, follow us on the socials to connect with each other, talk about the game, talk about Uruguay. And yeah, it's going to be a really exciting time for sure.
Again, thanks for having me on. I'll echo what Farid was saying before he left this community, this space. So positive, so wonderful to see everybody get get behind this team, regardless of who's out there playing. I don't care. It's Uruguay. It's La Celeste. Come on, man. Like, it doesn't get any more beautiful than that. And I can't wait. I mean, the games have begun, and we're in for one now. So let's just hope and pray that it's good.
No, absolutely. Okay. So thanks again, and we will see you in a bit. Bye-bye.